November 23, I was meditating and a voice said, write this down. So I write down, and the first thing that it says is the kingdom. So I write the kingdom. And it says create 7 circles. And so I created 7 circles. And it gave me names for these circles. And what? Then at the beginning of 2024, like maybe the spring, it goes, now write the book. People need it. And I said, well, what is the book? And it said, The Kingdom of Magic and Mystery. People have forgotten that they are universal magicians. They are seeking outside of themselves, which is causing anxiety and mental illness, all these things, right? Then they said, and there are 7 castles that they can access to reactivate their magical prowess. So that's this.
Hello, and welcome back to the Oracle on Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Leah Dunlap. Today, I am so excited to be here today with Cynthia James. She is an award-winning international writer and coach. I am excited because she has a book that she is launching that is coming out, and I want to share the title of that book with you. It is appropriate for our podcast because as the Oracle on Purpose, I love to share in this podcast the gift of divine information. And of course, her title of her book really feeds right into that, which is The Kingdom of Magic and Mystery. The Kingdom of Magic and Mystery. She's also the founder and the host of the acclaimed podcast, Women Awakening. Cynthia, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to just dive right in and start talking about your history itself, because I know that you have a wonderful history of how you've come to be this coach and this writer, and you've written several books. So tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to start the process of writing all these amazing books.
Well, I'd love to tell you that, I knew from the time that I was little, I was going to be an author and coach, but no.
But no, not so much.
Challenging childhood. But here's the thing. I have come 5 generations of women who were all prophetic dreamers. Mm. And they knew when babies were being born and when people were going to leave. I mean, I learned pretty early not to talk about that to people because then they thought we were kind of witches or whatever. But it was very clear to me that even though I didn't understand it all, that there was something powerful that was guiding. And so I've always been a seeker. Lots of classes, lots of workshops, lots of education things, because I wanted to know what was this thing, because it was African Methodist Episcopal, was the religion I was in.
Wow.
But it was like, wow, I think there's more to spirit than this.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
So I had interesting conversations with my family because they were like, supposed to be a good church girl.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that curiosity, I became an actress. I got married to an actor. We had a family. It didn't work well, and it was very public. But out of that, I went into a school of spiritual psychology.
Ooh, interesting.
That opened up my whole way of being a coach. And I created a whole strategy for working with people called emotional integration. And that began the writing journey.
I love it. And I love what you said too. I mean, I can definitely attest to that feeling of being outside of the norm for your own family. For myself, I was completely outside of the norm. I happened to be adopted. So all of my family, blonde hair, blue eyes, and me. So that already sets me apart. But like you, early on, I was aware of knowing things and understanding things and being able to literally read people that were at 5 years old, I was reading people that were adults who didn't like that, by the way. They were not happy with me telling them about themselves. So I can totally appreciate how when as young people, when we have these kind of gifts and these understandings and like you said, these curiosities, if they're not fed well, that, they still stay with us and they're still a part of who we are. And they do lead us on these journeys of discovery. So it sounds like you took a journey to understand more and to have a better, what we call around here, alignment to what you believed do you feel like what was for you in that journey? What allowed you to stay with what you knew, what you felt inside yourself?
I don't think I had a choice.
Oh,
Because
interesting.
when I did listen to guidance, so the universe will kind of whisper to you, go over here. And if you don't listen, it'll pick you. And if it doesn't, if you don't listen, it can be like a 2x4. So
Yes.
I had a few 2x4s and something in said, oh, okay, I'm being guided. Maybe I better learn how to listen
Mm-hmm.
so that I can become obedient to it because it's trying to offer me more opportunities and a grander vision than my mind is.
What if you could tap into the law of attraction with precision and power on your terms? I'm Leah Dunlap, and in my audiobook, Power Up the Law of Attraction, I give you the no-fluff blueprint to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and peace. Ready to stop manifesting by accident and start creating with intention? Download Power Up the Law of Attraction now on Audible. Now, back to the show. Do you remember a moment specifically where that realization kind of hit you that, oh, wait, this information is for me, right? I like to tell people, like, life isn't happening to you. Life is happening for you, through you. So I'm curious for you when that realization kind of hit that, oh, these little nudges, they're happening for me. Do you remember a specific time when that really stood out for you?
A really specific time.
Yeah.
I was in Los Angeles and I was trying to be an actress. And at the time, there was the first Star Search with me.
Wow.
I was in an class and a woman said, you should be on Star Search. And I said, I had already sent a tape, didn't get any response. And she said, because it's who you know. Okay. So she introduces me and I win 7 times.
No way.
I win
Oh
7
my goodness.
and it was in the acting category. And so then I came back to semifinals and I got into the finals.
Wow.
The person I was competing against was the person that beat me in the 8th time. I was like, I'm going to do this well. And I got a coach and I was working really hard. And so I get up to do my rehearsal and the producer, who never talks to anybody, comes and sits down next to me. He goes, how you doing? Go, fine. He goes, how'd you think that went? Good. He said, well, where do you think you won all those times? And now my mind is going, why is he asking me these questions?
Yeah.
I said, well, I think because I really am a good actress. I work hard. I study. And he said, I think that's true. He said, but you actually won all those times because you were in every character and I didn't see her too. And I went,
oh, wow.
So then my mind was like, God, is he trying to sabotage me? What's going on? And then there was this little quiet thing that said, pay attention. So I went back to my dressing room and my roommate was a woman who was competing for singing. And we both were like nervous and we said, maybe we should do a prayer. Maybe we should do a prayer to be present. And so to bring our best and to be present. And so I get up on the stage and I was playing a librarian who, was very conservative, which is very interesting considering who I am. And a guy comes into the library and starts doing a strip. And the librarian is freaking. There was a line that was a challenge for me. And he comes in, and now we're live and all these judges, and he's taking off his clothes. And all of a sudden the line can't come out. And it's like, and all of a sudden the actor in me said, oh, she would be flustered if somebody were taking off their clothes. So I just played it up and I went and did these things. And long story short, I won. They handed me $100,000 on television. Now, the thing is, though, many times that conversation with that producer came to me.
Yes.
That you must be.
Yes.
Bring you to every situation.
Isn't that amazing? I love that. What a great example, right? That those moments that the universe is conspiring on our behalf, that we have to be present to hear it, to take advantage of it. Like you said, definitely, I think I definitely agree that there are moments in our life, and I've actually, said that as well, like these 2x4 moments where if we're not listening to the nudges, eventually the universe is going to shake us in some way and say, like, pay attention. And I love that. Pay attention, because that's when we get those nudges that are meant for us. And I think it's beautiful that, like you said, you took that to heart. And then the next thing I think is, yeah, we get these nudges, but you have to act on them, right? You have to do something about that. So you did that. I love that story. And I love that that's kind of where your journey started. As you transitioned and you moved from acting into coaching, what was that transition like? Because I think that's another thing is, like, the women founders and entrepreneurs who are listening to this is like, we get those nudges. We think maybe it's time, maybe it's not time. I don't know. Lots of clients that show up at my door are saying, like, am I on the right path? So what was your sign that you were on the right path when you decided to become a coach?
I was married to a very visible peer, and the divorce was and I was devastated by all the stuff that was going on. And I was in a girlfriend's guest room to try to figure out what I was going to do, and fell asleep. And I woke up, everything must change. Everything must change. Nothing stays the same.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That song starts playing, and a voice in me said, "You have always reinvented yourself." It was like something was pulling me.
Yes.
And so that's when I went to school to get a master's in spiritual psychology, not even knowing what I was going to have, because I still was like, I'm going to be after it. But meanwhile, they said, we need you to create, this was a class, your own counseling strategy and present.
Oh.
And so I was like, okay, I don't even have one, so let's see what's going to happen here. So I kind of just used all these things that I had downloaded that were my spiritual practice and put it into one. I didn't know at the time that it was going to become my signature program.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did that, I started noticing that as I was presenting it, people were having a response to it. So maybe there's something here for me. And I had already gone through a spiritual kind of program. And so I started seeing clients, not because I thought it was going to be my job, but because I thought, well, this is a nice service to people. And if I can make a little money while I'm trying to be all that.
Yes.
But people started having healings.
Mm.
And then all the acting doors started closing.
Isn't that interesting? Yes.
And I didn't realize at the time that, that thing about when one door closes, another opens. The universe was telling me, you've done that. Now this is your call. And that's when I started realizing that purpose is encoded in you. You don't have to find it. You got to discover it.
Absolutely. Yes, the purpose is encoded in you. And I think that the other piece I want to kind of like have everybody pay attention to is sometimes we are done with a thing, but it doesn't mean that thing was wasted, right? Like, you had to present this thing. Well, I'm sure that having all that acting experience made presenting this new thing possible and easier at least for you. And so often I think people feel like one of the reasons they hold on so tightly, they put so much effort, right? And identified themselves so long as a thing that they feel like they're giving up, right? Or they're quitting in some way. And so I love that you're saying, like, yeah, you realize those doors closed, but this other thing opened, and those doors had to be closed for that to happen.
Yeah. And that includes relationships. I mean, it's across the board, and so because I was a single mom, then I got a job in corporate America that was for 6 years. And in that 6 years, I was in corporate communications. And so all the stuff I had learned as an actress, I was bringing over here and learning and working in corporate communications. And it was teaching me technology and to have a voice and to be on stages. And so all of a sudden, both worlds started to come together.
Right.
And that's when I wrote my first book, because my first book was called What Will Set You Free? How do you move from pain to passion?
Yes. Moving from pain to passion. I like that. So with that journey and the piece of this that's kind of like getting a little crunchy highlight from me from O is there is this acceptance of self that I'm hearing underneath this, right? Like you took because a lot of people won't do that. They won't allow what's driving them from inside to have enough weight to make those choices. So what was it for you that really locked you into knowing that the inclination to make choices was ratified, that you were, that you had what it took to be the next thing you wanted to become and to get on the stages and to like it takes something. So what do you think that you were anchoring in, or what is your practice that you use to make sure that you're staying in that alignment?
Well, I've been meditating for 40 years, but there's a man whose name is Michael Beckwith, and he's got this thing process.
Yes, I am
And I
very
was,
aware. Yeah.
yeah, and I was trained in some of his work. And, and so I started using the visioning process, which is not just like visualization. It's like asking, what's the highest vision for my life? And what do I become? What must I become for that to happen? What do
Right.
I need to let go of, and what do I need to embrace for that to fulfill itself? So I started visioning on what's next. And I've been a singer my whole life, and I used to open for Jay Leno and different people in Harris, and that had shut down too. But I started getting phone calls from spiritual centers.
Ah.
Said, "Will you come? We heard you're a great singer, and will you come?" And I'm like, "I don't have any music for this." And they would say, "Sing positive songs." So I would take Broadway songs and
Oh my gosh.
I'd sing them. But what started happening is all of a sudden, because I'm visioning now, right? Kept hearing, "You're a composer." Now, I don't
Mm.
read music.
Interesting.
You're a composer. Right. And so I would sit down with a pianist and they would just start playing chords and lyrics and music would come out. So I have written 50 songs,
Oh my gosh.
recorded like 30 of them, and I do not read music. And
I
so
love it.
it's always music is my music is always in my presentation.
I love that. And I think that's a great piece too, as far as like when we talk about like this journey of, for us in here in this Oracle on Purpose, our focus is on living a limitless life of purpose and prosperity. I think this ties into that of like the idea that you can so many people struggle with the idea of like, well, how will I do this? I.e., like, I don't even know how to write. Like it is, we were just talking about like it's giving yourself over to those nudges and understanding that they don't come from nowhere, that they're meant for you. And so if you're given the inclination to do a thing, then just follow through with that is what I'm hearing. Like there's this it will carry you to where it needs to take you if you allow it. Right? You
Yeah,
have to be
because
able
it's
to allow
surrender.
it. Yes,
No,
surrender
I
to
didn't
it.
mean to interrupt you, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's
No.
surrender. And surrender isn't a weakness. It's an allowing.
Allowing, yes. And I think that's true. People think that if they're oftentimes they feel like the way through is always going to be a struggle, right? They're kind of stuck on that. So it's like the idea of surrender feels so counterintuitive when really, as you're saying, there is something inside of you that is calling you. It's a calling for you that if you listen to those nudges, if you listen to the little voice, the quieter, maybe softer spoken voice inside of you, then you will be led to create that life the way you need to. I love it.
How I wrote my last.
Tell us a little bit about that book. What was the impetus behind the book and what is it covering? What's the topic there for that book?
So November 23, I was meditating and a voice said, "Write this down." Now that's happened to me many of times because I've written poems and music, whatever. So I write down, and the first thing that it says is the kingdom. So I write kingdom. And it says create 7 circles. And so I created 7 circles. And it gave me names for these circles. And what? And what? And then it's quiet. It goes now. So then at the beginning of 2024, like maybe the spring, it goes, Now write the book. People need it. And I said, well, what is the book? And it said, The Kingdom of Magic and Mystery. It's
Wow.
people have forgotten that they are universal magicians. They are seeking outside of themselves, which is causing anxiety and mental illness, all these things, right? And so then they said, and there are 7 castles that they can access to reactivate their magical prowess. So that's this.
Amazing. I love it. So here you have a book that has basically itself, just to be clear to everyone, has been channeled into existence at the right time. And that just speaks to the idea of like perfect timing, right? When people talk about perfect timing, it's like you get these nudges and you think, well, why didn't that work out? Because it wasn't time. It's like it needed germination. I like to say like there's a germination period for all these things. And sometimes you just need to be in the right moment and be really present, like you said, to be ready to do it when it's ready. Ready to
Yeah,
do it
and
when
I
it's
want to
ready.
I want to tell your audience,
Yes.
there's no time and space in the universe. Every other book that I have written, to get a publisher, and it take 18 months, and you're in the thing, and then you got to market. And I literally started writing the book, and it ended up in a conference, and I end up sitting next to a man who hasn't been my favorite person. And he has given a gift to the people at this conference to be in his book writing program or whatever, which I wasn't interested. So he sits down next to me and he goes, "Hey, what are you working on?" He said, he says, "Are you working on a book?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, what's the book called? I said, "The Kingdom of Magic and Mystery." He goes, "Well, what's it about?" So I start telling him, and he goes, "You do realize this is brilliant." Okay. He said, "I want to publish it. I am a publishing company. I live in Canada." And he's, "When do you want this to come out?" I said, "Well, I'd like it to come out in 25. And he said, "Do you want it to come out at the beginning of 2025? I'll help you."
Oh my gosh.
So here's the thing. I had been, and this is for anybody who's an entrepreneur or a leader, when you ask, the universe starts to correspond with you. And it shows up in ways sometimes imagined, sometimes unimagined. You could never have told me 5 years ago that this man that I thought was interesting sit there, get the vision, and want to help me fulfill it.
Exactly. And I often say, so those of you who are listening as well, like more often than not, that's the case. More often than not, it isn't the thing you think is going to happen that brings it about. And why? Because the possibilities of how a thing can happen are truly limitless. And we don't always know, but people get hung up. Like you said, they get hung up. Their eyes are down. They're only looking for something. And how, as an example of what you just said, like what would have happened if Cynthia had said, yeah, I'm not going to share because this will happen. I'm not going to share this. Like, this is my thing. Like, I'm going to hide it until I'm ready. Right. Like, we can be in moments where we miss our opportunities because we're not open to receive that guidance, but we're also not open to receive support. And we start to see things differently. So I love that you were not only in the midst of doing that, really honoring that nudge, but also open to receiving how it showed up, even though it showed up perhaps different than you thought it was from the other books you'd done in the past. I think that's amazing. Yeah.
I'll tell you, I have to say, I take people pilgrimages and on sacred sites, to honor Italy, to in the temples of humankind, to go to the south of France, go through Mary Magdalene land and Madonna's. And so I take people to Egypt to spend 12 days in the goddess and the god energy there to open. And I believe when you go to sacred places like that, there's energy, that frequency that's been there ancient. And if you are open and available, then you start getting support that you don't even know of. I mean, the fact that you do the oracle, that you can tap into that, says that you have nurtured some spiritual part of yourself to open to the infinite fields of possibility.
Absolutely. Right. And I think you're right. Like that's a part of this journey. I would say, and I agree with you. I'm like, I want to go to all these places. And as well, for my retreats that I've taken my clients on, I'm always looking for that energetic vibration because it's right. We have to get ourselves there. We have to get to a space. And yes, I've been doing this since I was 5 years old. So for me, it's a natural practice. It's just part of who I am now. And I know that there are places we go to where the vibration itself in the space is so strong, you can't help but be moved by it. And so I love that that's part of your journey as well. But I think people have to understand, like, sometimes it takes getting away from the norm to reconnect and step into sacred spaces so that you can hear yourself think. You can feel yourself moved by the experience and then follow that through lines to what is perhaps your gift or your vision or your path forward. So as you are looking at your own path now, you have the book and I love that's coming out. But I'm curious because as we've created this podcast, our goal is, of course, to highlight amazing women like yourself and talk about the journey and talk about what it looks like for you, because someone else out there is going, I thought it was just me. I thought I was the only one that this happened to. And also to give back as the Oracle, to give you the opportunity to get some insight, perhaps, or an answer to a question about what you're doing next. So tell us what you're doing next and what might be a question you have for the Oracle around that.
In May, I am hosting 22 speaker teachers healers summit called Vibrant Living Summit. And I became aware, especially in the last year in the United States, with all the politics and people division and all that. And then you've got war in Ukraine, and then you got Israel and Gaza, and you got all this stuff happening. And so people are feeling uncertain, they're anxious. And I thought, I'm not a person who's going to get straight placards, but I want to make a difference. And so I just started journaling, and what came was bring people together who can teach people high frequency mastery, how to master their energy and their frequency so that they can stay grounded no matter what's going on in the world or in their familial structure. So that's what I'm doing. I have 22 amazing teachers, speakers, healers, authors, and they're all coming with tools so that people can walk away with these tools. They can have a big treasure chest of tools to navigate.
Amazing. So if you were to ask a question of the Oracle about that next vision for yourself, what might it be?
What am I being called to do beyond this? Because it feels like a beginning. I don't know what am I being called to do or open to beyond these 3 days, people coming to.
So I hear this, and so everybody understands, confirming the question. So it's beyond the summit. What are you being called to I think you said do, and she just slipped in create. So I'm going to offer that as probably the first inclination of her answer. But if that's your question, then I think it's the thing that showed up as soon as you said that, the image for me, and this is typically what I get as an image first, is you in a very large audience. There's a lot of white. There's a lot. So it feels very holy. It feels very spiritual. Speaking in almost to an audience from a spiritual perspective. And I will use this word because it's floating here, which is take them to church, Cynthia.
Okay.
So there's this image of you, and I'm saying, like, I'm hundreds of people in front of you, and yet the image is actually you in the center. So there's a big center, a spiritual gathering and the phrase, take them to church. And I think it's all you utilizing all of your combined skills to really elevate the message. All right. Well, it was wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast. I'm so excited to share you with the world. For those of you who are watching, thank you for watching. Make sure that you click below and subscribe so you can have more amazing times with incredible women, entrepreneurs, and founders like Cynthia. I am Leah Dunlap. This is the Oracle on Purpose podcast, where, of course, we always want you to know that you are here on purpose and you deserve to live a limitless life of purpose and prosperity. Thanks for watching.